I'm an English teacher by background, so no one in the real world would want young people to be behind face coverings, because teaching is an education business which depends on communication. Of course, you need to be able to see the responses of young people. They need to be able to see you as the teacher. But then these are not normal times, are they? And I think what was happening prior to Christmas is that face coverings had been introduced in the classroom in Wales, in Northern Ireland, in Scotland. Parents in England were saying, so what's so different about England? Just explain that to us. And I think that what young people have said, and I've just been reading an email from a secondary head who runs a school of 1,200, who said, what these young people are saying to us is, of course, we don't want to wear face coverings. But if what that means is that we are less likely to have disrupted education because we won't be transmitting the virus so much to our friends and we won't be transmitting it to our teachers, and therefore more of us can actually be physically in the classroom, and there is an end date to this, we hope, of 24th of January, well, that's a price worth paying. And I think that is a sign of how young people are showing a kind of maturity around a debate which I know is raging out there, particularly on the back benches. I'm not sure it's raging in schools and colleges, where young people and their teachers and the leaders I represent, more than anyone, are determined that we keep young people in schools. And that would be a small price to pay, a few weeks of having to wear face coverings.
I mean, from your perspective then, do you think we're in a situation where people are being offended on behalf of children rather than the children being concerned themselves?
I think there is a bit of a sense of that, Stephen. I actually think we've had that since the beginning of the pandemic. I think young people have been presented as the victims in all of this, which, of course, not being able to be in school, they are. Some of the language, I think, has been deeply unhelpful. Right from the beginning, we heard young people being talked of as the lost generation. We heard a complete emphasis on recovery, as if they were ill, and catch up, as if they were falling way behind. Now, of course, there are significant issues. The government could have been doing more throughout all of this. But I do think there is a bit of a sense that what we've seen, I mean, for example, here's the head teacher, another head teacher who's emailed me overnight, saying we are very fortunate that our students are wearing face masks and complying. We had 1,200 in last Tuesday. They were pleased to be back. They had to queue up for more than an hour to have their lateral flow test. The atmosphere was lovely in spite of the long queues. It made it all worthwhile. And I think sometimes we get these caricatures around what schools and colleges are like from people on the outside, and we don't recognise the resilience both of those young people who are kind of getting on with it, the teachers and the other staff who are doing so much more to help them to get on with it, and the leaders I represent who, however much they might be feeling anxiety, know that they owe it to their communities to say, look, let's just get this behind us and let's do what is necessary to get it behind us.
But what worries me is that it's just gone on for such a long time. And we all know, if you're a parent yourself, you know how incredibly important it is to interact with your children simply by looking at them. Facial recognition, in other words. Children learn such a lot from looking at your face, from other people's faces. It's a sort of social interaction. We don't even know how powerful it is. And for such a long time, these youngsters have been in school not able to just have that very, very natural response to the people around them. That's the thing that worries me.
Oh, of course. I mean, none of us thinks that this should be the norm. None of us thinks it should be ideal. It is worth just acknowledging that if you've got a child in England, then your child will not have been wearing a face covering in the classroom for the majority of the time. That's been quite different from some other parts of the UK. But yeah, there's all kinds of reasons. I mentioned the pedagogic reason, that is, it isn't great for communication in the classroom. And the other thing just worth saying, Anne, is if in normal times when I'm in school, and I used to be head of a comprehensive school, if I was a child who was, I don't know, autistic, for example, for whom wearing a face covering is something which is unthinkable. Well, in normal times, nothing was drawing attention to me. Now, if I'm the only young person in a classroom who's not wearing a face covering, I'm going to feel kind of exposed by all of that. So I totally understand the arguments. I've never been a proponent of face coverings, but I am a proponent for pragmatism. I'm someone who thinks that education needs to be delivered in the classroom where we can. And if one part of the mitigation, alongside ventilation, alongside vaccination, alongside on-site testing and all those other things that we've been calling for are now happening, if that's one thing we have to do till the 24th of January, well, don't take it from me. Take it from those 1,200 young people in a school who didn't want to do it, but they're doing it because education matters to them.